This is Silicon Real, so let's talk real and ask you a couple, hard questions. We mentioned before, like, you're going to get from Google and Vodafone, they're going to, like, the word lesbian's going to put up a bunch of barriers. You're going to get restricted. You go talk to VCs, I think you've been open in saying that some just can't touch you. IPO might not even be possible. How do you deal with things like that? A small business, it's hard enough to do a startup.
Yeah, do you know what? With every business, some business won't be, like, a business won't be for some investor. Some people just go, no, this isn't the kind of thing we're interested in. And for some people, maybe that's a reason because their fund comes from a certain country where they just would never want. So someone had investors from the Middle East who just, this wouldn't ever align with what their values were. And so they wouldn't be able to put money into this business. They said, like, no sex, gambling, and alcohol. There's sex on our app. So that happens. It's fine. It just means that there are some investors that are for us and some that won't be. I think there's a big difference between what we do and what Grindr does. I think, Grindr there was on Channel 4 last night on the news, there's a really big piece about Grindr being used to facilitate, the use of crystal meth and sex orgies, and they were kind of talking about how the role that Grindr plays in that. So that's not something that I think will crop up as much within our audience. So I don't think we're looking at the same kind of community that has grown through Grindr. Grindr's used for hookups, and Dattch at the moment isn't being used for hookups. It's not to say that in the future it won't move towards there, but at the moment it's not. So I think as a community of people, it's not quite as scary or kind of as extreme as maybe some people see Grindr to be.
We know Grindr's been very successful. You talked about it earlier as far as the communication is different between, women as opposed to men that you see. Are there any other big reasons why Grindr will not be able to develop a Dattch? Or how it's so
Grindr,
different? The apples and
they
oranges.
made Blendr at one point, which was because they were being asked by women to create it for women. And then they just went for the mass market and created Blendr, which was meant to be for everyone. But it was, they added a lot of interest stuff into it. It was a relatively similar structure to how Grindr worked, but they had a bit more kind of profiling around, what your interests were. And it started being used as a hookup app, which I think is probably because it came from Grindr, and so people just put it in the same box. I think they've never had the interest to do it so far. So, they might do at some point, in which case they might bring on a female team to start looking at it and running it. They don't have any data on female behavior at the moment, but that's not to say that they won't be interested in it at some point.